everybody, welcome back to the Reading Writing Ruby. Today we're going to be talking about first, second, and third person and their differences. We're also going to be covering first person, omniscient, limited, and objective, which some of you may not have heard of. So today is actually going to be the first in kind of a short video series. My goal with this one is to be short and easy for you to follow. So without further ado, let's get right into it. First person. For first person, you would want to use the pronouns I, me, and my. The story is told from an individual point of view, and it's describing what's happening to that person. You get to hear their thoughts and their feelings. It's more of a awareness that you don't get from other points of view. So my example here, all my examples are from my own personal writing. So this one is pounding sounds as I attempt to dislodge the snow caked on my boots before stepping over the threshold. Crackling warmth greets my frostbitten face, as does the outline of my father as he stokes the flames in our stone-bricked fireplace. So as you can see, I used I here, I used my, and I used my again, showing that it is our character in the first person point of view. So anytime you see that, it would be first person. It's very powerful, and it's very good if you don't have a very large world to build. If you're doing a lot of world building, I would recommend something that you can use to get more information in, because sometimes if you're writing a high fantasy in first person and you just try to blurb a bunch of background information, it feels a little out of place. Second person. Now, this is one I can safely say I have never written in, and I have only ever read one book with this. I really dislike second person. I really don't like it just because it feels really weird. So the way second person works is it's all about you. It's a narrative that's told from your point of view. It's generally something that not a lot of people use. It's a lot of things that are used in short stories and poetry. But if you're trying to really, really do something that is different and like if it's a choose your own adventure, or if you're trying to really make a point, that is when you would use second person. So here's my example from number 1. Translated to second person. Pounding sounds as you attempt to dislodge the snow caked on your boots before stepping over the threshold. Crackling warmth greets your frostbitten face, as does the outline of your father as he stokes the flames in the stone-bricked fireplace. It's a lot more personal than first person, and it's definitely a lot harder, I feel like, to write in. So now we're on to third person. Now all of these, the first 3, first, second, and third person, are all very common. I feel like they teach them quite often. It's the last 3 that I feel like are harder to get, so we'll spend a little bit longer on those. So third person is used more than any other one that I have ever found. The key pronouns are they, them, their, he, she, it, and his, hers, theirs. So instead of like you did this, it's they did that or she did that. It's most used widely in every book ever. I mean, I read more books in third person than first or second. Definitely not second. It's not told from the point of view of the narrator, and it's not told by the reader. It's just told by the story. Here's my example translated into third person. Pounding sounded as Charlotte attempted to dislodge the snow caked on her boots before stepping over the threshold. Crackling warmth greeted her frostbitten face, as did the outline of her father as he stoked the flames in the stone-bricked fireplace. So something else you'll notice is it's more of, I use a lot of ing and ed. So it's more of in the past. It just happened. Pounding. It sounded. It's not sounding now. It sounded a couple moments ago. You see I missed attempted. It should be attempted instead of attempt because it happened. Hopefully that makes sense, because now we have to move on to the ones that are a little bit harder. Even I had a hard time learning these. Okay, so omniscient, limited, and objective. Omniscient is very much used when you're changing points of view very often. So if you are, like every chapter, switching to a different point of view, that would be omniscient third person. It basically means all-knowing. So your narrator knows everything from every character. It is quite common because it's very easy to use. You can fit it into a lot of characters' feelings and complex worlds. So that is omniscient. Here is my example. Now, I think I wrote these correctly. I just kind of did it off of my understanding of how it is written. So I didn't have enough space, obviously, to show you what 2 separate chapters would look like, so I just kind of summed it up. Charlotte watched the brothers amble off, excitement swirling in her stomach, just as it was Wilbur's. Wilbur grinned down at Jameson, eyes twinkling with mischief. "Our time has come, little brother." So as you can see in my example, I am showing what Charlotte is feeling and what Wilbur is feeling and doing. Now, because I didn't have a lot of space and time to work with, obviously it's not as in-depth as it should be, but you kind of get the gist of it. So for limited, unlike Omniscient, where it's all-knowing, limited sticks with one character. It stays with one person and shows their feelings and their thoughts in the story. Now, that doesn't mean you use I or you. That would make it first and second person. It's more of trapping yourself with one character. You show how they feel and what's going on around them. This might be a little confusing, but it is used a lot in Harry Potter. So if you have read that, then you would know this. So here is my example. It's a little bit different than the other one because it shows a little more. Charlotte watched the brothers amble off, shivering in the slight wind that wound its way through the cavern. Her mind swirled with excitement as she watched Wilbur shoot Jameson a grin. Yet a pang of loneliness lit up her stomach as they disappeared into the darkness. It is showing Wilbur's movement, but it's not showing that, oh, his eyes are twinkling with mischief or that he's feeling mischievous. It's showing how she feels watching those two leave, knowing that she'll always be alone. A good example of this that is also a little bit older would be The Giver. The Giver does a great job of showing the limited point of view. And now for our final one, objective. This one is very hard to use. I can't say I have ever read a book with the objective point of view. We have omniscient, which is all-knowing. We have limited, which is one character. And we have objective, which is a stranger watching your characters. That's the best way to describe it. If your characters were sitting on a bench talking, it would be like the old man sitting on another bench watching them. It reduces a lot of the feeling and color that can come into a story, but in some instances, it can also be very useful to make points or show very potent emotions. And it leaves the reader to judge the characters and their actions instead of you judging it for them. It also can add a lot of mystery. A very known example of this is Hills Like White Elephants by Ernest Hemingway. Here is my example. It is the same passage from the top two, but it is translated into the objective point of view. The gray-haired girl's gaze followed the two brothers as they left the cavern. A soft smile played on her lips, yet sadness sparked in her eyes. She was alone. She watched them leave, but it didn't go into too much detail about them. It didn't show, what they were feeling, but you can see by the soft smile on her lips, and because it didn't say what she was feeling, you could be like, oh, she must like them. Or, oh, maybe she's thinking about them, or she's thinking something different about them. And then when you leave it off as she was alone, you don't know whether she's alone because she did something or if they just worked out their plan. It's definitely a really different way to think about things, and it can give your characters a lot of depth. A lot of depth in a different way, though. So those were the technically 6, but 3 types of views that you can do when you're writing. I use a lot of first and third person recently, and a lot of my stories, usually the way I write is they start off in third person and then I translate them into first person, which is kind of weird, but for me it works. Let me know what you guys think, and which ones do you use? Which ones are you going to look into, and which ones did you think were really weird? Let me know what you think in the comments. Pretty soon I will have a book review coming out. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe so you know when I upload next. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.